Coming up on Getting Real to Heal with Dr. Grace.
That morning, we were going to go run some errands, and he had a company car and a company truck, and the truck was at his work, and he was going to go in and swap the vehicles out and come home with the truck so we could run our errands. He died in that truck before pulling out into traffic.
Welcome to a place where we discover the freedom and healing found only in Jesus Christ. Through powerful stories, our guests tell how He turns pain into peace, rewrites lives, and restores the wholeness only He can give. This is Getting Real to Heal with Dr. Grace.
Welcome to Getting Real to Heal with Dr. Grace. Thank you so much for joining us today. And today's topic is called Turning Loss into New Beginnings. When I was preparing for this podcast with my special guest, Angie Smith, I had looked up the average age of a woman who loses her husband in the U.S., and that age is 59 years old. And I was so shocked because I thought it would have been a lot higher. Angie, unfortunately, is one of those women that experienced a tremendous loss when her husband, Preston, passed away in 2015. But today, she's here to share what God has turned this loss into new beginnings. And I know this is really going to encourage y'all, this particular podcast. Angie, she is a lifelong musician and educator, and she was on staff at Tyler Junior College for 10 years. And I know Angie through Green Acres Baptist Church, our home church, where she was on the music staff for 13 years. And actually, I think Angie had all three of my kiddos. And so, and Angie, she started this journey of how the Lord was directing her into a totally different path of a career after the unexpected loss of her husband, Preston. Currently, Angie is the women's director at Flint Baptist Church, and she's been there since 2022. And she lives in Tyler, Texas, and she is the proud mom of Chad and Grant. And she has two beautiful granddaughters, which one of them was just recently born.
Yes.
6 weeks ago.
Yes.
So welcome to the show, Angie.
Thank you.
Yes. And so, Angie, I wanted to start off and just ask you, what was your childhood upbringing like?
I was born in Oklahoma and lived there for 11 years till I was 11. We moved to Tyler. My dad worked for the government, and they transferred a lot, and we moved here when I was 11 years old.
Wow, you've been here for a long time.
Yes, a long time.
That's great. I bet it was a lot smaller back then.
It was much smaller. It was a lot smaller. Yes.
So your folks, you grew up in a stable home.
Yes. Yes, supportive parents, two younger brothers. Lots of love and support in a Christian home. Yes.
Good. So you were involved in church early on.
Yes.
And when did you become a believer?
7 years old in McAlester, Oklahoma at Flint Baptist Church.
Okay.
My dad was the bivocational music pastor there, and I remember from a very young age standing on stage next to him. He would kneel down, and we would sing together.
Wow.
And so those early memories for me from church.
Okay.
Yes.
So your father also was in the worship ministry.
Yes.
Okay.
Just bivocational.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, it's just a gift that he just continued to pass on in you, and you were able to use that for a lot of years, you know?
Yes.
So after you finished high school here in Tyler, where did you go to college?
Well, my parents at that point had transferred to Chicagoland area when I was in the middle of my senior year. I stayed to finish at Robert E. Lee, and by the time the summer was rolling around, I was missing all my friends here in Tyler, and so I had a full ride offer for the music at Tyler Junior College, and so I just came back here instead of going off to college. I just came back to Tyler, where people I knew, and my church home was here, and finished at Tyler Junior College. Met Preston in the middle of that, and then we finished college after that with graduate work.
So what year did y'all get married?
We married in 1986. Okay. We met at youth camp the year before.
Okay.
And I was 19 and he was 20 when we married.
Wow. Y'all were babies.
We were. Youth camp. Youth camp was a highlight for us. Meeting at youth camp and.
Wow.
So
I never got to know Preston. And, so tell me a little bit about him. What was
Well,
he like?
Preston grew up in Longview, Texas, and graduated a year before I did. I didn't know him. We had learned that we had been to a lot of the same camps, through our teen years, but didn't meet until 1985. Married in '86. So he worked for Brookshire's Grocery Company. He was in the meat department, the butcher. He was a butcher.
Okay.
Good stable job at that time, and
wow.
And so we met, and
then y'all started having children.
We were married almost 6 years before we had Grant, our oldest, and so we had a lot of years, just us, which was, and we were young, so we got to grow and learn together and what it meant to be married, and before we started a family. But
so
those were great years.
So Grant's your oldest, and then Chad was born.
Chad was born about 3.5 years later.
Okay,
and typical. I stayed home with them through most of it. When Chad started school was when I started at Tyler Junior College.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. That's good.
I was able to stay home. That was a blessing. It was difficult for us to go down to one income. I had worked all those years that we didn't have kids, and then we wanted to make that sacrifice, and that was not easy. But it was. I loved every minute of it. So absolutely. Chad lives in Oklahoma City now with his wife Jessica, and they were just here this weekend with my beautiful 6-week six-week-old granddaughter Clara, and Grant's daughter. She lives in Dallas, and so she's almost 5, and I see her very often.
Okay, good. So Angie, tell us about that day when you found out about Preston.
2 months before, we had purchased a new home. The boys had graduated, and we had moved from White House into Tyler, and to be closer to work, and we had always kind of planned that move, and we were finally in the house about 2 months. And on August 1st, 2015 was a Saturday morning, and we had breakfast on our new patio. And Preston said, I remember the conversation a little bit, something to the effect of, we had just gone through a life change. He said, we've just gone through a life change, like the birth of a baby or just different big things.
New job.
Yes. And we had just had a move, and we were in and we were settled. And that morning we were going to go run some errands, and he had a company car and a company truck, and the truck was at his work, and he was going to go in and swap the vehicles out and come home with the truck so we could run our errands. And he died in that truck before pulling out into traffic. I kept waiting on him. I kept waiting on him to call. He wasn't coming home. Okay. And I texted him. My last text to him said, "Where are you?" Okay. And then he called me. It said Preston, and he called me, but it was first responders. And once they confirmed that it was me that they were talking to, they said, "Miss Smith," I just remember certain words like non-responsive, chest compressions, things like that. And so Chad and I immediately got in the car and were headed there. And then they called again, and it was the responders again said, "Meet us at the hospital." Okay. And so I kind of felt like I knew what that meant. But I was 48 years old. He was 3 weeks away from his 50th. He was 49, 3 weeks away from his 50th birthday.
So young.
And I remember, they said it was the widowmaker heart attack. And got to the hospital and
So
started.
So this was definitely, he was feeling just fine, didn't have any problems physically. Yeah. And then when the heart attack happened, it was just too much for him. Yeah. And so when you got to the hospital, and I am sure so many emotions and thoughts and fears and all of that just came at you, Angie. And, do you remember kind of how you felt and how you were managing to take one step at a time to what you needed to do?
Yes, we beat the ambulance there at the hospital, and just I had made some phone calls on the way. I got there. My worship staff from Green Acres was there. Pastor David Dykes was there. And so just dealing with the immediate circumstances of the moment. so many decisions to make, and you're in shock. And so to try to make clear-headed decisions at the moment, I really did rely a lot on my people to speak into me wisdom and guidance, and that was in great supply for me. But moving forward, I call it the widow fog.
Okay.
So for 6 months, you're kind of just trying to determine, I needed to determine, could I afford to stay in this new home? We had committed to pay for Chad's college as long as he wanted to go. Could I still do that? And so, there are short-term decisions that have to be made, but then long-term decisions as well. And I always tell widows when I meet with them, don't make permanent decisions based on temporary circumstances. Don't go cut your hair off. Don't go sell your home. Don't move. Just try to sit and breathe a little bit. And that was, I think you're just in a state of shock for a lot of that time, and so you just handle the next thing that comes up.
Right. And so, because I'm sure that was the last thing you thought you were going to be faced with, at the age of 48. And how long had y'all been married?
We were married almost 30 years when he passed away. We were going to be planning our 30th in the next calendar year, and so I count that year that we dated. I count that. So we were together 30 years. So he.
Good. So it sounds like, obviously, since then, becoming a widow yourself and helping other widows on this journey, you've seen that it does take several months, and that it is going to be a fog that you are going to be walking through for months, and that's normal, and that you shouldn't, feel like, that you should be doing something else.
Yes, no, that is very normal, and everyone's journey is different. I think a lot is dependent on the circumstances of the marriage, of the age of the widow. I meet with them. Do you have young children? Do you have a job? Are you going to be financially secure? Do you have a good support system, a good family support system where you are? So there are just so many factors that go into how I would counsel a young widow versus a widow in her 70s. Too, so.
Right, for sure.
But
and so going back to you, did you have moments where you were upset with the Lord, angry?
You hear about all the stages of grief, and anger is one of them. I did not deal with that as much. I dealt more with I had a strong faith. I had a strong support system. I completely relied on God's sovereignty, and I had surrendered my life to Him to be used. And so pretty quickly I turned to God. I don't know how you're going to use this in my life, but I'm going to trust that you will. And so I remember hours just on my patio. You asked about were there scriptures that, what meant something. I would just sit on my patio for hours with my, with my tea and just my Bible open. Yes. And sometimes it's just sitting in God's presence and in that grief. And, the Bible, I had scriptures that we may want to talk about in a little bit that talk about how Jesus intercedes for us. The Holy Spirit intercedes for us. And, I can't tell you that I physically felt carried through on the prayers of my church family, my family. And I knew the Holy Spirit was interceding for me, and Jesus was my comfort and guide. There is some, I can't even put language to how God is close to the brokenhearted.
Right.
For those whose lives are devoted to Him.
Right.
And that was so real to me
Right.
during that time.
Well, I think in your lowest moments, you already have a relationship with Jesus, that he literally is sitting with you and he's likely weeping with you. He totally understands, Angie, where you're at. And so I think it's really important that people understand that, you just need to sit still. You need to be in communion with the Lord and talking and listening and, singing and crying and weeping and all of those things, and allow him just to continue to comfort you. Because I know, Preston was a strong believer, so there was no doubt you knew where he was. And so, to celebrate, his heavenly, homecoming, obviously, is bittersweet, but one day we're all going to be there for those who know, love Jesus Christ. And so I think that's really good that you just knew you just had to just sit with the Lord for quite some time, and for him to start, speaking to you. And because I'm sure depression and all of that, that's all normal, and because it's a huge loss. And so I know it took a while for you to finally transition to a place where, okay, I am a widow now. What is it now, Lord, that you want to do with my life? And so was it that time? I know, Angie, that you just love people and you love women in particular. And the Lord started bringing you opportunities for other widows that have been walking this journey, that I'm sure actually spoken to your life, as well as since you've been speaking into other people's.
Absolutely. I was on the worship staff at Green Acres, and so I had there are commonalities between ministry work, from moving from one area to another of ministry. You're still ministering to people and pouring into people and encouraging people and walking with people through things. And so I know that I admired our women's ministry at Green Acres, but after Preston had died, they would call and say, "Could you meet with this widow?" Or, "This woman is going through this. Would you consider that?" or whatever. And watching that kind of God growing that passion. I remember one circumstance where a young widow, she was 30 years old, had lost her husband, and they had 2 young girls, and she would bring the girls to their Sunday school class each week, but she didn't want to go back to their couples class. That she didn't feel like she belonged there anymore. And so I would meet with her during the Sunday school hour in my office in the worship ministry, just walking her through that. I did that for a year and met with her. And I tell people, when God creates a passion in your heart for something, and over here he created a position that never existed before, and he brought those 2 things together, it's been miraculous in my life to watch that journey and see how God has unfolded the path to allow me to be where I'm at now.
Right. Because prior to Preston's death, you never even thought about moving into a different ministry area.
No, music was all I knew. I taught at TJC for 10 years. And led big choirs and
you loved it, and you were great at it, and it was just
loved that. That was obviously God's calling on my life that whole time. But how God, I tell people that we not only need to be responsible to the Lord with our money and our time, but we need to be responsible to the Lord with our experiences. And God allowed me to go through that experience for a reason.
Right.
And he has used that in my life to help women and to open up my heart to an area of ministry that I never knew I would be involved in. And so I think it's shocked me, when I told family members or, my coworkers that, it was a shift, but it was obviously God's plan.
Right. And as you met with these women, and the more that you shared about your own experience and you were able to listen to theirs, obviously the Lord, you had mentioned to me, he started healing your heart through that.
Absolutely. Every time you share your story, or at least for me, every time I shared my story, I healed a little bit. And you create that that permission to speak into another woman's life. Because I have been where you are, circumstances may not all be the same, but because I've been where you are, I can speak into your life.
Right.
And the same thing for me. And so in sharing that with them, it helped me heal.
Right. And so it just makes me remember, my testimony of having a past abortion. And so when the Lord truly healed and forgiven me, and I had forgiven myself, and then I started meeting with women who had past abortions as well. I mean, yes, that passion just arose in you. You're just like, okay, Lord, you're calling me to this other ministry I would not have ever thought you would ever bring any good from.
Yes.
That decision, but he does, and he birthed, a new ministry from it. And so likewise for you, as you continue to share with more women, you then felt that pull from the Lord that maybe it was time to move the trajectory of your career.
Absolutely.
So how long would you say that went over? Like a year or two?
No. I don't even think it was that long.
Okay.
I would say a few months, 6, 8 months. Where I am now at Flint Baptist Church as the women's ministry director, they did not have that position. It was volunteer. Okay. My pastor's wife, Karen, dealt with that. They had different women who would kind of take different areas of the ministry. Right. Well, they didn't have that position, and so we all know how long it takes to get things going in a Baptist church, right?
Yes.
There was a process that had to be that rightfully so had to be followed to create a new staff position, and I would hear from my pastor, Brother Sam. We're here in this process. We're looking at this, and so I would just wait for updates. And so what that did was that forced me to sit and wait.
Even though you already knew that is where the Lord
that's
was
where God was calling me,
into.
And I just like, Lord, if this is what you want, this will come to pass. This will work out. I'll visit with the church. I started watching their services online and trying to get familiar with that church culture and type things. Right. But
well, you were very patient.
Yes.
So it was 7 years later when they finally opened the
position. It wasn't that long.
Okay.
I would say 6, 7 months. I'm sorry if I misspoke, but 6 or 7 months, I think.
Yeah.
And, during that time, I remember God called me to a fast, not a food fast. I need to clarify that. I live by myself, and so the evenings are quiet, and I would always watch TV in the evening times. Still do, I love a good medical drama or a silly sitcom or whatever. We do have to be very careful. I have a whole other discussion with that, but as women and as women in ministry, we have responsibility there to put things with, I will only let my eyes watch something that is, with integrity. Yes. Anyway, he called me to a television fast for 3 weeks.
Okay, yeah.
But I also know that when you fast, at least scripturally, you are to replace it with something. You can't just stop doing something and stop it. You need to replace it with something. And so we're in the middle of a peace Bible study right now with our women, a huge study right now. And I said, don't think about zebras. Just don't think about zebras. Well, what are you going to do? That's all you're going to think about. And so, if you're trying to replace thoughts, you need to. I was trying to replace that television time with something, and so I planned it. I planned a word study, a book study, scripture memory. I had to be very intentional with that time, and I'm telling you, Grace, that was a very impactful time in my Christian walk. With the Lord to spend that.
Wow.
Those hours that I would be doing something else, not a bad something else, but just something else.
Right.
And there have been times since that it hasn't been 3 weeks, but there will be times where there's like, all right, this week we're going to stay here. And when I'm seeking things or praying specifically for somebody, I would encourage us all to try to.
Well, I really feel that extra time you had with the Lord and studying His Word and waiting and listening to Him and discerning what it is He wanted you to do next definitely just grew that passion even more in your heart. Like, Lord, this is where you're calling me. I know it is. And He was getting you ready, Angie. You know what I mean?
I fully believe
because
that. I fully believe
children's music, worship ministry. Yes, there's some overlap, but it's very different. So I wanted to ask you, did you feel like it was too many challenges at the start? Were you afraid of, like, Lord, what are you doing? Why are you moving me here?
Yes, no, those are all valid questions. I think that I had probably been through the hardest thing in my life. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yes. I felt confident in the move. I knew God was in the move. Green Acres sent me off well, and Flint Baptist embraced me. I had incredible staff support. Mm-hmm. My pastor and his wife, and they were my biggest cheerleaders in this, and in helping me. You do have to learn that. There are challenges. You have to learn new people. Mm-hmm. I had spent a generation with families at Green Acres. Mm-hmm. I saw their kids move through elementary and middle school and high school and be launched into college, and I got to pour into those families for an entire generation. Right. And so I'm moving to a place where I don't know people. I knew, a few people.
But they didn't know you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the church has grown exponentially. They had, we're averaging 2,400 people on a Sunday, and looking at adding a third service in 2026, it's just exploded. And so the faces, I had a lot of people to learn. And because I am a people person, it's hard for me to walk in without that history.
Yes.
And other simple challenges were like, how do you get into the building? What keys do I need? What computer systems do we use? Who do I go to when I need, where are the Kleenexes? Yeah. Just things like that.
But I'm sure the church brought people to help you.
Oh, absolutely. At every need was met.
Because I'm sure you walked into it. You're like, Lord, I've not done this before.
Yes.
But this is you calling me into this, so you know what needs to happen. And so,
I think probably the biggest difference for me was counseling women. This was, I had a little bit of psychology stuff in college, that we all had to have or whatever. Mm-hmm. My minor was, speech and communication and that type of thing. But to sit and listen to women and to know how to speak into them. I've done a lot of counseling training, online things, book studies. That's been the biggest difference. Right. I didn't do a lot of that type of thing in my previous ministry.
But you have had a lot of on-the-job training.
I have had a lot of on-the-job training and just life experience. And I just always want to drive women to the Word. When we were creating what the purpose was for women's ministry, and it was to one of the three tenets is to instill a love of the Word in the women of Flint Baptist. I want this. This is the thing that never changes. Mm-hmm. This is the thing that has the answers to every single situation in your life.
Exactly.
And and so
So you pretty much kind of had a pretty easy transition. And I mean, you just embraced this new season with open arms.
I have. I feel very. There is no question that this was God's path, next step for me in life.
Right. And I mean, do you miss the music?
That was one of the questions in moving to Flint. You have all the interviews and stuff, and one of the men on the committee said, "Now, are you going to miss that?" And I have to think about that. I miss my people. I miss the work. I miss that. But there's a lot that goes into worship ministry that people do not realize. There are hours and. I know there are hours. Yes. You have a worship pastor in your family. Just the hours and then you've got the whole I don't want to call it performance pressure, but when I was in the college performing world, there is performance pressure. I know how hard those guys work. I know they're there late for rehearsals. I know they're there early on Sunday mornings for sound checks. I know the pace that ministry requires. And I'm not going to say I'll never sing again, but I feel completely satisfied in the role where he has me.
Right.
And there's plenty of people who want to sing, and there's plenty of ministry that can be done with using lots of people. But right now, that's where he has me, and I'm loving it.
Yes, I have learned a lot with Sarah being married to a worship pastor for the last 5 years.
Which is funny to me because I knew Sarah when she was in high school choir. I had her in high school choir. So.
And Austin, I just couldn't believe all the politics and, the expectations from church members and everybody's opinion. And
absolutely.
So it is. It's definitely, challenges that you probably are like, I don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah.
And so, so Angie, through the loss of Preston, what did you learn about yourself that you were kind of surprised about? Like, you didn't know you had it in you?
That's a good question. I remember irrational fears in the immediate aftermath after his death. I was afraid I was going to lose my cell phone. I was terrified of that. That was my only connection to the world. Huh. If my boys needed to find me, I don't, you move through irrational fears.
Okay.
I remember thinking I saw Preston in a crowd.
Okay.
Everywhere we went. And so in the immediate aftermath, there is fear. Your brain is just trying to settle around a new normal. And, but moving into things that would surprise me was, I can handle things. If I can't handle things, I know I can call someone to handle things. I was a 48-year-old widow. Preston was 49. There was still a lot of life left as far as like the finances.
Right.
He took care. I mean, I knew our financial status, and things that happened, but he took care of the checkbook. In fact, he died on August 1st. On July 31st, the Friday night before the 1st, before he died, he sat down and paid all of August's bills. That was taken care of it. So, I remember that he had passed away for 3 days before we realized nobody was getting the mail. You fall into your own routine and who does what, and nobody had gotten the mail. And so, you pick up the slack, and I think you just do what you have to do.
Right. And you realize I can do these tasks.
I can. I don't like it. Right. I may not like it, but I can do it.
Right.
And and God has blessed me with the means to do this, the intelligence to do this. He surrounded me with people to help me through this. And so it's really tapping into every resource that God puts at our disposal. And I think that's so important.
Yes, and that's, you had such a close-knit community of family and close friends who were strong believers, and you could call on them anytime for prayer.
Absolutely. I say, people say, I don't know how people go through this without the Lord. I don't. Right. I don't know how they navigate this without a church family.
Right.
I had the best in the worst situation.
Yeah.
And
so in walking through this and really experiencing the Lord on a deeper level, Angie, what were some things new that you learned about him that were so much more evident?
I learned he is near to the brokenhearted. That is a true statement. I learned he is sovereign. That is a true statement. And if I let him, he can be my greatest comforter, my greatest counselor, my companion. I missed a teammate. I missed my teammate. I missed Preston, when something would happen, it's the first phone call. I missed, we're going to meet after work and we're going to get all of our errands done and enjoy the time together after a long day. I missed that companionship. Jesus is that for us. If we just really sink into that relationship and seek him and desire to know him above all else.
Right.
I just can't tell. I mean, I would give anything to have Preston back, but I wouldn't give anything for the lessons that I've learned about Jesus and our Savior and my Christian walk through that experience.
Right. No kidding. Because right before the show, I was sharing, you'd asked me how I was doing because I had the breast cancer a few years ago, and I would never wish cancer on anybody, but I am very grateful for the things that the Lord taught me through it. And not just about, myself, but just about life, what's really important in life, and just about how he is in control of everything, no matter how bad things may get on this side of heaven. He still is going to win, and he's still there with us, walking through the valleys with us, And so
I tell people that the storm's going to pass. You're going to get through this. You have a very brief opportunity of time, a brief window of time to experience God in a way that you don't get to outside of that time. He's going to show you things during that time and only during that time about himself, and you don't want to miss it.
I love that.
That moves through with confidence for your future to know those things that he's taught you during that time. We don't want to waste that pain.
Right.
Learn what you can about him during those horrible situations. Try to step out of it. As hard as it is, try to step out of it and see where he meets the need and shows up for you.
Yes. I definitely believe there's purpose from every single pain that we experience on this side of heaven, And so, and I love that you, challenge people to say, don't waste this moment where you need to be be so intimate with Jesus, with what he's trying to teach you through all of this, you know, and that we need him desperately, even so much more.
I don't think we know.
Yeah.
I think the Christian who might, read a little devotion in the morning and not really spending time with the Lord like they need to, being rooted, I think they don't know what they don't know. I think we have a lot of people claiming to be Christians, and they may be, but are they seeking God with everything they have? Is he number one in your life? Is he the most important person in your life?
Right. So, I had mentioned this to one of my kids several months ago. It's like, are you concerned with what God is thinking about, what your thoughts are, what you are doing with your life, how you are living with your life, living your life? Is your utmost concern is, how does the Lord feel about how I am living my life, and having him really be the center, and, always evaluating that, like, okay, I do care, Lord, how you feel about what I'm doing in my life.
Every decision, in every conversation, when I walked in this building, when every purchase I make, every conversation I have, every decision I make, I want him there with me, and I want to be looking through his eyes at the situation and letting him guide that.
Right. Right. Because so many times, we're human and we're fleshly, and we say things sometimes that shouldn't have been said. And
yes. I was scared to death to do a podcast.
Oh,
you sing a 3-minute song. You know all the words. They're on the screen up there. You just sing that. You do a podcast. You don't know what's going to come out of yours.
Girl, no, you are doing great. No, and I don't know. I just think there's so much beauty that the Lord has brought because of Preston's passing, and it's not going to be long before you will be with Preston, and you'll get to introduce me to him in heaven.
And so, love to meet you.
And I know entering into this new field of ministry What are some of the blessings that the Lord has given you that you had not experienced before?
I think probably the greatest blessing is I have a great women's team. I have some very dynamic, young, even not young women who I love encouraging, and I love to give them opportunities to step into all they can be, teaching opportunities, ministry opportunities. And that, for me, that quickens my spirit to see women living out the passion and the talent that God has given them.
Right.
And I can see it in their eyes when I have them come to my office and let's talk about an opportunity for you. And I can just see it on their faces and in their eyes. And I love giving women opportunities to grow in their lives.
Yeah, I mean, and you're an encourager. You want to push people to fulfill their God-given talents and gifts, and that is, so that's definitely different than when you were in worship.
Yeah. There is some similarities there with encouraging students and, my time at Tyler Junior College and, encouraging getting the best out of people. Now, in women's ministry, I get to let them bring out the best in what God can do through them.
Right.
And that is so rewarding for me.
Right. Wow, Angie, it's amazing, the Lord definitely had his hand on you. And, the moment that Preston passed on to heaven, the Lord just started this new work in you. And he was bringing up all these different things that you never even realized you had an interest in. And it's only because of what you've been through, you can speak into that. And so, and I know recently you just did a birthday party for Preston.
Yes. He died 3 weeks before his 50th birthday party, so we didn't get to have his party.
Yeah.
And that's always bothered me. And so just a few days ago was his 60th birthday, and I invited, we invited all of his family, his sisters had come in, family friends, old friends. A guy and his wife drove in from the Hill Country who was in a wedding, and Chad and Jessica came from Oklahoma City with the new baby. It was a beautiful, wonderful time to remember and celebrate.
No.
I tell people you move from the bitter more into the sweet. And that bittersweet timeline continuum.
Yeah.
And so it was just a sweet celebration of him.
Yes. No, that is wonderful.
It was a wonderful time.
And I had no idea his favorite restaurant was Pizza King.
My goodness.
Is John and I's favorite restaurant.
Oh, really? Yes.
In Longview, because he's from Longview.
Yes, I did it. Yes. John was from there.
Yes.
Yeah. So. No, the date was you go to Pizza King and then you go to Butcher Shop for dessert.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, I couldn't do both, so I brought the desserts from Butcher Shop over to Pizza King. And so we had the best of both worlds for him.
It's so good. It's so good. It's so. I
loved it, yeah.
No, that is wonderful. And so, Angie, can you share with the listeners some of your favorite scriptures? You had mentioned that, the word does say the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and he saves those who are crushed in spirit. And so definitely you experienced that.
Absolutely. There are a few scriptures that I did want to mention. When you're trying to replace those anxious thoughts, when you do go into a tailspin and you need something to replace the anxious thoughts, my go-to is Philippians 4:8 that says, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable. If there is anything praiseworthy, dwell on these things." So I broke that down into, I do this in the middle of the night when those thoughts are bothering me. True, honorable, just, pure, lovely, commendable. True, honorable, just, pure, lovely, commendable. What scriptures, speaks to me. Another one is 2 Corinthians 1-4. After Preston died, I remember Chad came to the patio. and he had this scripture. Because I spent a lot of time on the patio. He said, "Mom, the 2 Corinthians 1:4, he says, He comforts us in all our affliction, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any kind of affliction through the comfort we ourselves received."
Right.
And so that really, and that has played out so
You've seen it.
powerfully in my life in ministering to other women.
Right. It's wonderful.
And, I've got a string of others here.
No, I just think these verses, the words in his word truly come alive when you are going through these things.
Scripture memory is so important, and it's good to just have a list and pick. But I think that the Word also speaks to every season of our life, and so choose something that you can go to bed with. That when you wake up in the middle of the night, you can start repeating.
Yes. So it
needs to speak to the season that you are in life.
Yes. No, it's good, and I think Scripture memory it needs to be able to roll off your tongue.
Absolutely,
and because the Lord wants you to remember these things. And so, and I know that you had several different resources that really helped you.
Yes,
so
there are. When as a widow, I received a lot of books.
Okay.
There's widows like to write books. They all of a sudden have a lot of time on their hands. But one that I met this lady. Her name is Lisa Apollo, and the book is Life Can Be Good Again. This is not just about. She is a widow, but this is just about grief or trauma of any kind or loss. It's just a great resource that I keep in my office that I give to women.
Okay.
Another book just is fantastic. You guys, mine is well worn. The Heaven book, but as you can see, it's a big textbook, but they also make the little handbook companion that I will send to widows. This is really good because we wonder what our loved ones are experiencing. Where exactly are our loved ones?
Right.
So this is a great resource.
Okay.
My favorite thing that was given to me after Preston passed away, and you can tell that it is well worn, is Streams in the Desert. This is a great daily devotion. This was one of those things where if I couldn't read or concentrate on Scripture, I could sit here and I could read a small devotion.
Right.
And it's just a beautiful book, and I would highly recommend this one.
No, that is wonderful.
So those are the resources.
Those are great. And so all of these books, we will have the links in the show notes. So
Perfect.
Our listeners can get a copy of it. And so Angie, let the listeners know how they can get a hold of you.
If you want to go to the Flint Baptist Church website, I am under the staff. I'm sure there's a staff section. I'm the women's ministry director, and then I'm on Facebook. Good old Facebook.
Okay.
Angie Kindred Smith. Kindred was my maiden name, so Angie Kindred Smith.
No, that's wonderful. And I believe the email is asmith@flintbc.net.
That's it, asmith@flintbc.net.
Very good. So as we're wrapping up, Angie, what can you tell just a young widow what are the things that they need to do when this happens?
I think just do the next right thing.
Okay.
You're so bombarded with so many decisions. Just take a beat, take a breath, step outside of yourself and take care of, like I had to step outside of Angie and take care of Angie. What did she need at that moment?
Good. And ask for help?
Absolutely.
Right.
And absolutely. Your church can't help if we don't know about it.
Right.
We'll hear, the church, nobody contacted me. We didn't know. You've got to let people know that is why it's so important to stay connected to a local church for when situations like this, and it helps you to become involved in others' lives.
Right.
And sometimes that's good advice too.
Right.
Step out of your own grief to help someone else. It will help you heal.
Yes, exactly. And I know that when I went through my cancer, one thing that the Lord taught me was to learn how to receive help.
Yes.
Because I was not one to really be on the receiving end before. And it really taught me to say, let these people do what they want to do.
Yes. Don't rob them of the blessing.
Exactly.
It's a blessing for them to get to help. People want to know, what can I do to help?
Right.
I'll do anything.
Right.
Well, tell them.
Right, exactly.
I need toilet paper. My house is suddenly filled with millions of people coming to see me.
Right.
Because I'm a widow. But so,
right.
you know,
yeah.
Tell them practical ways of things that you need. They want to fulfill those needs.
Yes, I know, because there's really nothing anybody can say to lessen the pain, but you can let them do something
Absolutely.
for you. And obviously prayer
Yes.
is the most important thing.
Yes.
And just checking in on you and making sure, you just, So, anyways, thank you so much, Angie. I really enjoyed listening to your story and just how the Lord weaved this new beginning in your life, after Preston's, loss. And so, and I know God's got great, things that on the horizon for you. And he's got you deep entrenched into this women's ministry, and you are doing it so beautifully, and you're doing it with open arms.
Grace, thank you. I appreciate yours and Dr. John's impact on our community. It is immeasurable, and
thank you,
just such kingdom work. I have admired you guys for a very long time, and thank you for your service here
You're
in
so
our community.
kind. Thank you. So, well, that wraps up today's Getting Real to Heal with Dr. Grace, and we will see you the next time. Bye now.
This podcast is made possible in part by Express Employment Professionals, the leading staffing agency in East Texas, helping thousands of businesses find the right employees. If you're looking for a job, visit expresspros.com to learn more. If you enjoyed this podcast, visit deepintheheartministries.com/podcast, where you can find all previous episodes, subscribe to our channel, or leave a suggestion for future topics. You can also email Grace at drgraceenglish.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.